Bam, good morning. The April 4th, 2023 special board meeting is now in order. I'm happy to welcome my fellow board members and the public. I would like to take this opportunity to remind the public that the appropriate place for public participation in the meeting is during your individual public comment opportunity as identified by the agenda. Outside your individual public comment opportunity, your role in the meeting is as an observer. Tammy, roll call, please.
Mrs. Campbell?
Here.
Mrs. Jenkins?
Here.
Mr. Susan?
Here.
Mr. Trent?
Here.
Mrs. Wright?
Here.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. That brings us to the adoption of the agenda.
On this morning's agenda, we have 3 action items and 1 discussion item. Changes made to the agenda since released to the public include the addition of item 6, temporary delegation of authority, Assistant Superintendent Facility Services, item 7, job description, Assistant General Counsel, and item 8, administrative staff recommendations.
Do I hear a motion?
Move to approve. Second.
Is there any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Passes 5-0. We are now at the public comments portion of this morning's special meeting. Comments will be limited to the agenda items only. We have 0 speakers, and each will receive 0 minutes. I will call up 3 speakers, 0 speakers at a time. Pursuant to board policy and tonight's motion, you are allowed to address the board members by name. That concludes public comments. Thank you for your willingness to address us in this public manner. Ms. Han, would you please let us know about the item under the action portion of today's agenda?
Yes, sir. The first item is the temporary delegation of authority for the Assistant Superintendent of Facilities.
Do I hear a motion?
Move to approve. Second.
Is there any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Passes 5-0. You want to say something, Ms. Sue?
No, sir. The next
Okay.
item is the job description for Assistant General Counsel.
Do I hear a motion?
Move to approve. Second.
Is there any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 5-0.
And the last item are administrative staff recommendations.
Do I hear a motion?
Move to approve. Second.
Is there any discussion?
Can I just, excuse me, add something to this?
Yep.
I had the opportunity to speak with Miss Mary Jo and her principal, and I just want to thank them for that opportunity to really get to speak to you, hear your heart, your vision on what drives you, why you want to step into this role, and I'm grateful for that. I hope my fellow board members will take that opportunity to do the same and really get to know her. Her heart is in the right spot. She's going to be a huge asset in this role, so I'm very excited for her to be part of our team.
I did, and I wanted to say thank you. I also reached out to her and her principal, talked to both of them, and I concur with all of your comments, and we look forward to having you as a big part of our team. Thank you. All right. Anybody else? Did we run through the administrative ones yet?
We didn't vote yet.
We didn't?
That was discussion.
That was
Did we do the
discussion,
move
so
to
we
approve?
haven't voted
Yep,
on it
okay.
yet.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Passes 5-0. Discussion. We will now move to today's discussion item pertaining to the superintendent search. FSBA will lead the discussion. Before you start, Ms. Han, you had made a request that you could occupy your time doing some other things. We appreciate that. So if you would like to take that time, if anybody else
What are you talking
disagrees.
about? You have nothing to do.
Yeah. Ms. Han, I
Schedule.
just want to make sure all the other board members are okay with Ms. Han getting to work. We all good?
Yes,
You don't
absolutely.
have an attorney and a superintendent?
And I am in charge, so here we
No,
go.
I would say Miss Messina is in charge. Thank you.
Ms. Han, thank you very much. You're excused from the meeting. Ms. Messina, this is all you.
Just say that her request is an indicator of her wisdom. Just to be effective with her time. With me here today is our full superintendent's team. I apologize in advance for my scratchy throat. Can't tell you what's going on, but you should have received 33 application packets, and to review the full pool of candidates and applicants is Dr. Vogel.
Good morning, and thank you very much, board members. Yes, as Mrs. Messina said, we were very pleased to receive 33 applications. And as we look through these, All of the people that applied have a special talent and experiences that help them decide to go ahead and apply for this position. Our challenge is to narrow the field and then find the person that fits the needs of Brevard County Schools. But we do have a strong field there. We ended up with 24 of the applicants with doctorate degrees, 13 states represented, so we did have a good success on a national basis. There are 4 current superintendents that applied, and then there are 6 additional individuals that had prior superintendent experience. I'd just like to say something about superintendent experience. In some of the places where individuals worked, as I looked through all of the packets, their title was superintendent, but it may not necessarily be the same as we see as a superintendent. A good example is the Florida State Lab School, where they have 3 schools, an elementary, middle, and high school, and that position is called a superintendent. I looked and I found executive director somewhere on that. There's also an applicant that was superintendent of the Lake Wales Charter School District, and some of you may not be aware, but that was a carve-out district by the legislature, and so there is actually a charter school district with a superintendent there in that. So, and I also saw some people that applied that were in small, very small schools that the title was superintendent. So I just wanted to make that clarification also. The other thing too, as you go through your all of the applicants, is anybody who's had a position of high authority is very likely, if you Google them, to have some sort of article that may be negative, or there may be a pending legal matter or something to that effect. And we're here to go ahead and help the board through those, and when we do our research, as the semifinalists are determined, we'll be able to work through that with you. And once the semifinalists are chosen, we'll start our in-depth background check, and when we're using our legal firm that we use in Orlando, Greenspoon Martyr, and so we'll have more information in that. So, any questions on our applicant pool?
I don't think anybody has any questions. If you do, here's the opportunity. They're going to kind of, just so we know the process of this, we're going to let FSBA walk us through the whole thing. So
Yep.
right now would be the appropriate time if you have any questions pertaining to any of these. Otherwise, we can move on to the next step.
No, I'm ready to move on, but I thank you for addressing the background check, because we had that question. I think we all kind of have a quick, brief memory lapse last week. We had that question last week about, hey, can HR do this, this, and this? And I said, I think we're paying FSBA to do that.
Sure.
So, and of course, that will take a lot of the burden off of our existing staff as well.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, back to you, Andrea.
Okay. Excuse me. So the way we're going to work through this process, our goal here today is to reach consensus on a pool of semifinalists, people that the board believes the board ought to continue to consider. So I'll ask for each board member to tell me the applicant numbers of those candidates that you believe the board ought to continue to consider. You'll notice the names are listed on your tally sheet in the order of District 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And so when I call your name, for example, if I was going to say Dr. Vogel, he might say, I'd like us to continue to consider applicants number 3, 5, 7, 9, 12, 15, 18, 19, whatever. And we'll put a little tally mark all the way across. I will confirm when you've read all of your numbers that I have accurately captured them on my tally sheet, and that will also assist your secretary. And then we'll go to the next board member, next board member, next board member. Then we'll tally them all up and see where the commonalities lie and kind of work through that to get to a consensus of who will remain under consideration. So, Ms. Wright, who do you believe that the board ought to continue to consider?
You're making me
I was like, wow, you went right at
It's
it.
District 1.
If I
have
could,
numbers if you're not ready.
Okay, yeah.
If I
yeah,
could-
you're ready.
All right, if somebody else wants to go, I don't mind. All right, Miss,
Yeah,
did I hear Miss Jenkins first?
Yeah.
All right, we'll go Miss Jenkins, then Mr.
I
Trent.
hear first, wait a second.
I made my list by number, so
Yeah, me too.
I get it.
Yep.
And I put it next to Gene Trent. Whoopsies.
And let me also explain, if I might, one of the reasons we try to use the application numbers is because we want to try to keep the pool as wide as we can, as long as we can, and not have board or community invested in any singular candidate. And so by using the numbers, but also having them attached to the names, it's just a little less committed so that your minds remain open as we go through this process.
So I had, just before I give them to you, I made 7. And then I had 4, because I didn't know what we were doing here today. Yeah, like some maybes. So I'm just going to do the 7.
That's fine.
Okay. So I have 2, 8, 11. Go slow. Sorry. 21, 25, 26, and 31.
All right, I'm going to repeat these back to you. Please make sure I have accurately captured it. I have number 2, applicant number 8, applicant 11, applicant 21, applicant 25, 26, 31. Thank you.
thanks.
Mr. Trent.
All right, so I don't have quite as many, but we'll start. I have number 15, 18, 22, 24, and there are no more.
Okay, let me make sure I've captured it correctly. 15, 18, 22, 24.
Yep.
Okay, who would like to go next?
Be Ms. Campbell or,
Are you ready, Megan?
I'm almost there. Sorry,
Okay.
mine got out of order.
Yeah, no, I
so-
can go.
Ms. Campbell?
Yeah. All right. Let's see. First. I have some maybes also, but I'm going to give you, I'm just going to do I have 12, I think I counted. I'm trying to keep it broad.
listen,
8, 9, 11, 13, 15, 16, 18, 21, 22, 23, 25, 26.
I'm sorry, what did you say after 25?
25 and 26, and that is it.
Okay, so I'm going to read them back to you. 8, 9, 11, 13, 15, 16, 18, 21, 22, 23, 25, 26.
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Who wants to go next?
Mine are out of order, sorry. I'm,
doesn't matter.
all right.
And I can go if you,
Trying to get them in order, and I somehow messed my order up, and I don't know what I did here.
It's okay if they're out of order. We can follow.
Okay, I'll go. Bum, bum, bum. Okay. All right, I had applicant 8, 15, 18, 21, 23, 22,
Wait.
out of order, 22, 23.
Both of them.
Yeah,
Okay.
sorry.
Okay.
26 and 32.
Okay, I have 8, 15, 18, 21, 22, 23, 26, 32.
You got it.
All right, Mr. Susan.
so what I did was I had my core, and then there was a lot of superintendents that were deputies that I felt like would really be part of the process that might surprise us, because not many people remember that our previous 2, possibly 3 superintendents did not have superintendent experience. So it's just something to think about. So I wanted to kind of throw that out there, not because of the selection, but just so that everybody understands that there are many superintendents that are amazing that didn't have superintendent positions prior to. So, and in some cases, many of these people had sub-superintendent or assistant superintendents that were actually larger than our school district in some of them. So,
Yeah.
so my core was 15,
Go
17,
slow.
15, 17, 21, 24, 22, 27. And then I added 25, 23, 22, again, sorry, that one was up there, 18, 26, 3, and 9. Those were all the,
So I'm going to go ahead and read them all together, okay? I have 3, 9, 15, 17, 18, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27,
that's it.
okay? For Matt?
No, 19 is not.
No. All right, so then as I move through, I see applicant number 2 has 1, applicant 3 has 1, applicant 8 has 3, applicant 9 has 2, applicant 11 has 2, applicant 13 has 1, applicant 15 has 4, applicant 16 has 1, 17 has 1, 18 has 4, 21 has 4, 22 has 4, 23 has 3, 24 has 2, 23 has 3, 26 has 4, 27 has 1, 31 has 1, 32 has 1. Given that, I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 applicants that have 4 board members who would like to see these applicants remain under consideration. We have applicant 15, Dr. Mark Rendell, applicant 18, Rebecca Rollerson, applicant number 21, John Stratton, applicant 22, Dr. Jason Weissong, and applicant 26, Dr. Pete Licata. At the very least, can we start with an agreement that those applicants should remain under consideration?
Yes.
Yes? Want to make sure, okay. So now let's look at the applicants that have 3 board members who would like them to remain under consideration. We have applicant number 8, we have applicant number 23, applicant number 25. That would be Ernie Lozano, Mark Vianello, and Dr. Kim Moore. Would we like to have the applicants with 3 board members who want to have them be remaining in consideration, remain in the semifinalist consideration pool? I see some heads shaking.
I would like
Is there anyone opposed to that? Okay, so then we look at the applicants that have 2 board members who would like to have them under consideration. The 2 applicants with 2 are applicant number 9, Scott Schneider, applicant 11, Dr. James Larson, and applicant number 24, Captain Stephen Kingston. How would you like me to proceed with the ones listed that 2 board members want to see them remain in consideration? Typically, board members would want to have a little discussion at this point.
Yeah, I think this is worth a discussion. We're at 8, solid right now. If we add the other ones, we get up to 11. There's no, as we spoke with Ms. Messina, there is no, there's no limit. So you could put 15, and she said that it would be nice to have them a wider scope than it is a smaller scope. But with that, I just, with those facts, I listen to any kind of conversations. Is there anybody against adding the other 3, or is that good?
No, I'm good. I in my mind somewhere I had like 10
Yeah,
ish.
that's about what I had to.
So I think this brings us to
11.
11.
So
Yeah, I think the wider scope is a good,
I'm sorry?
I like the fact of adding the additional 3 applicants that have 2 votes. That will bring us to 11, and then these are semifinalists, so we will narrow it down from there once we go through receiving their answers to the questions. Is that the next step of this process, is that we'll send them the letter?
Yes, ma'am.
They will have the opportunity to respond to the questions via written and then video response, correct?
Yes, ma'am, and those responses, I'll get them out before I even leave site today.
Okay.
They will have 1 week, which ensures that they have the weekend next weekend, because we know these people have busy jobs. They will be due a week, so it'll be next Tuesday. I'll shoot them to you as soon, they're due to me by 5 PM, which means I'll get all the links and everything to you, probably 5:30 or 6. Gives you some time to look at it before our next meeting, which is actually a week later.
Can I ask one question? Does it impact anything significantly if we were to give them a couple of additional days? It is Easter this coming weekend. I know a lot of
that's true.
families are traveling,
It
so.
only impacts the amount of time you have to review them.
And the
But because we're not meeting again that same week, you would still have the following weekend. If we made it Thursday, for example, instead of Tuesday,
Tuesday.
it would give them a little more time. I think that's a reasonable
So
consideration.
then we'd have from that Thursday till the following Tuesday.
Right, to review them.
To review them.
That's plenty of time.
I think that's fair to, just in light of it being a holiday and people traveling.
Okay.
I like the direction. I think that there's plenty of time, and I think that we have enough time to, I think that we have enough time to do it. So I like that. I'm all favor. Does anybody, can I ask, after we're done with that, does anybody have like one that they're like, I think we really need to hear this person? Was the next thing. So are you good with that direction on the timing?
I'm perfect with the timing. I want to make sure there's no objection to letting the applicants get their responses in on Thursday rather than Tuesday next week, which gives them 2 extra days. But I'm still not clear on the 3 applicants that had 2 board members who wanted to see them. You're good and everyone's
Yeah.
okay with including them?
Can
Okay,
we-
just wanted to confirm.
You know, knowing we've got to, what's the to me, I'd like them up on Thursday, at least by Thursday evening, because we just, the public needs to have time. We need to have some time if there's a way. I mean, I don't know how fast from the deadline to publishing we can go.
Well, as soon as they get them to me, and I like what I do, just so you know, I have I have all of their written answers, and some people will send me 2 individual documents instead of 1 joint document, so I'll put them together. I make sure that they're titled similarly so that it'll say, for example, applicant 8 Lozano, and so they'll all say applicant number, last name, so they'll all look the same. Then I'll have a little chart that'll say 3 Lozano, and it'll have the hot links to the video, okay? And it'll be in a chart. So all I have to do is pass them through, okay? As soon as they get them to me, and I start the chart when the first person gives it to me, but I don't send it to you guys until all of them have been submitted.
Gotcha.
So if the deadline's 5, sometimes I have the links before then. If I do, I'll send them to you earlier. Otherwise, it would never take more than about 15 minutes for me to pull it together,
Okay.
shoot it, so your people could easily post it first thing on Friday morning.
Okay,
That's good. They'll have
That's
all the
fine.
weekend and then
Yeah.
Monday and Tuesday before.
yeah, okay.
Mr. Chair, there are some applicants that we still have that had 1 board member that wanted to see them continue in the process. So I'd like to know what you want me to do with those.
Is there anybody that has one that they felt didn't get on there, that they were like, listen, I think this takes a pretty good review? I would like, it's up to you guys if you know, some of them we put on there. No? No, Ms. Wright? Do you have one, Ms. Jenkins,
mean,
that
I
you
have-
feel we should really review, that you wanted to add to it?
Sorry, 1 second.
That's okay. Ms. Campbell, did you have one?
Well, I mean, without knowing, I've got just 2 that was the only one. Without knowing everybody's, and I don't need to know them, their no's. I mean, everybody had the opportunity to see the same information I did, and I would rather kind of stay with ones where we have at least a little bit of consensus building.
Okay. Ms. Jenkins, did you have any requests that you'd like us to take a look at?
No, I think that would be considerate if there was some insane discrepancy where one person's picks isn't reflected, but I think there's a good collaboration of aligning here. So I don't think that that's really necessary.
Okay. I don't either, so I think you've got your 11. So with that, what's the next step?
The next step is that Mr. Reichert is going to talk to you about the interview process and the next steps, and then Dr. Vogel is going to speak to you briefly about some compensation considerations that you want to start thinking about before you get into negotiations. So,
Sure.
Mr. Reichert.
Thank you, and good morning, everyone. I just wanted to briefly, I think in your packet you have kind of a slightly updated sample interview schedule for the on-site. And just as we move forward, just to keep the board informed, I did want to just touch on a few things that we have finalized. And I just picked this sample of the 4 finalists for interview just to review today with. So we could wind up with 3, 4, 5 still, but I just have this 4 sample to talk about today. Based on our last meeting, I just want to confirm that on the morning of April the 27th, we will have a light continental breakfast here in the back room prior to your interview starting. That will start at 7:45 until 8:15, and then you begin your interviews at 8:30. We are working on getting the tours set up, a little mini tour, save for candidate B, who has an hour and a half before his or her interview, and then the others have a little more time. We did finalize at the last meeting that we would kind of have a light dinner here for the finalists in the back before the meet and greet. That will be here in this room on that Thursday evening from 6 to 7:30. And jumping to Friday the 28th, again, the continental breakfast we'll have in the back room starting at 7:30 until 8 o'clock. And then 8:15, starting your one-on-one interviews. I'm going to stay around today after the meeting and work with Tammy to identify the rooms that we'll use for your one-on-one interviews. I've kind of filled in your board member names at the top there on that Friday, and I'd simply begin with the chair, the vice chair, and then alpha order after that. And should we have 4 finalists, that would give you a feel for your interview times on the 26th. Also on that Friday the 26th, we will have a kind of a light lunch for the board members to be able to eat, and the finalists, so we can kind of move through that day on Friday. If I could jump back to the 27th, as far as the school community tours, I have been communicating with Russell some, and I'd just like for him to give us a quick update on his thoughts on your staff host and what he's working on for the community host as well.
Good morning, board. Right now, we're prepared for 5 finalists to come in, and obviously if there's more, we can handle that as well. 5 cabinet members, myself, Jane Klein, Dr. Sullivan, Cindy Lisinski, and Russell Cheatham are prepared to act as one of the tour guides for the candidates. And we're reaching out right now. I'm reaching out right now to community leaders as well to see if they can escort as well. So we'll have at least two people in a car with candidates so they can ask questions about the community, the district, and kind of help them pass the time as they wait for their turn in front of you guys. We're also prepared to plan and execute the meals, whether it's the breakfast, the lunch, and the dinners as well here on site. So.
All right, Mr. Broom, thank you. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Broom? No? All right, thank you, sir. We're good to go? Yes, sir. Next up.
Thank you very much. Board members have previously received a summary of superintendent compensation options and prior to this meeting, and usually the process is once the superintendent is selected, that the chairman and the school board attorney would negotiate the terms of the contract. Always a good place to start is with a current contract you have now, perhaps the one that you utilize for Dr. Mullins. And then this summary just gives you some of the areas that are that involve compensation with superintendent contracts throughout the state. Look at it at your leisure and discuss this prior to the time that the superintendent is selected with the attorney to see if there are areas that you're concerned with or that you feel might be appropriate. I don't know if do you have this in front of you now?
Yes, it's not.
You do have it in front of you now?
Yep.
Okay, good. Let me just take a few minutes and go through it then. First, is some superintendents would prefer a tax-sheltered plan where a percentage of their salary would go into a tax-sheltered annuity. The next two areas there are special qualifications salary and annual performance salary incentive are programs that are in statute for elected superintendents. But many appointed superintendents also have that in their contracts. And especially if you hire someone from out of state or someone who has not been a superintendent, it's advisable that those superintendents go through one or both of those programs. The first program, the Special Qualifications Program, the individuals have to attend 4 sessions, and it's conducted by the Florida Association of District School Superintendents, and they actually have to pass a test. If they pass the test, then they receive a Special Qualifications Certificate that actually says superintendent on it. That's the only way in Florida where you can actually get a certificate that says superintendent on it, is if you pass that program. And the areas include school law, business and finance, instruction, and collective bargaining. So that's, especially if someone's not been a superintendent, that's a good training program. The appointed superintendents that go through the program, then we recommend the board have it in their contract where they receive $2,000. It's an annual $2,000 because in order to keep that certification, you have to attend training every year. The second training program is called the Chief Executive Officers Leadership Program. You can't even start that program until after you've completed the special certification program. That's a year-long program in which the individual does a study or focuses on a challenge or an issue in the district, and then the product of that the superintendent produces is rated by an outside group, and the outside group would rate it, and they would award either up to $3,500 to $7,500 for that completion of that program too. So those are two training programs that are often found in appointed superintendent contracts. Also, the bottom three there are pretty much self-explanatory, where boards encourage, I know this board encourages community involvement. Individual wants to join Rotary or Kiwanis. Some of the organizations that you probably are a member of, the superintendent's automatically involved, like the Chamber of Commerce, but there are other organizations that the superintendent joins as an individual. And so those are pretty much self-explanatory. Also, automobile allowance, there are a couple options on that. Some boards provide the superintendent with an automobile. Others provide mileage reimbursements for use of their own personal car or vehicle, and those are a couple options to look at. Normally, if you provide a mileage or a general allowance for vehicles, then they do not get any travel for in-county, but then out-of-county, if they go to Tallahassee for a meeting or something, they would get travel too. But that's something that, I don't know what your precedent is on that, but that's something that will be discussed. Sick leave is normally similar to what you pay for the sick leave according to Florida statute and what you use for your 12-month people. A lot of times the superintendent would get the maximum that you pay. I think probably if you've been here for a number of years, there's probably 1.5 days a month or 2 days a month. Normally that's a negotiable point too as far as the number of days. Vacation is usually same or negotiated. The other areas, life insurance, health plan, retirement options, superintendents usually under the senior management class of retirement, and usually the health benefits and insurance benefits are pretty much the same as all other administrative personnel. Moving expenses are negotiable, and they will be a part of the package. A lot depends on how far, who is hired, how far they're having to move, and we recommend normally giving just a lump sum, because also a board expectation is someone's going to be moving to Brevard County also, so they're going to probably have some temporary living expenses, and that can be all tied into that moving expenses piece on it, depending on who is selected. And finally, Florida statutes limits severance pay. Board members are probably familiar with this, for up to 20 weeks if there's a termination without cause, and there's other provisions in the contracts. What we try to do is when the superintendent's selected, we kind of review things with whoever's selected, and usually, so that the negotiations begin on a very positive note. We've never had any issue with that. And then the board and the chairman and the attorney, after getting input from the individual board members, go ahead and negotiate the contract. So are there any general questions I can answer about these?
I will say, just for the board members, that I think almost every single one of them, except for the tax sheltered plan, is already existing inside
Right.
of, and I know them very well because of recent events. So I think that, just so you guys know from a perspective, that's all.
So just clarifying, so you're suggesting that we should each meet individually with Mr. Gibbs
Yes.
to give him our feedback on each of these items?
Yes, and also, I've talked to Mr. Gibbs yesterday, and I believe you already have, or you can get a copy of the existing contract and then go from that particular point. What we find by having this discussion ahead of time, then when it's time to do the negotiations, it goes a lot smoother because the board members have, then it's no surprise, well, here's the contract, no one's ever seen it, or I'm not familiar with the provisions, so that gets us off on a real positive note.
Sounds good.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
And Mr. Chair, unless there are any questions, we're ready to move forward. Congratulate the semifinalists, get that information out. I will change that date to Thursday next week. I appreciate your consideration of the applicants, and we'll just move forward with the process.
Everybody
All right,
good?
thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. Does any board member wish to have any other further report or discussion? With no further business, this meeting is now adjourned.